Hey everyone, Ed from Get With The Pilgrim here. I'm in one of my favorite parks in the city. It's actually close to my house. Fun fact, my wife and I got married in this park. Maybe show a shot of where we actually held that. This is a great walking trail through a park here in London, and it goes all the way into downtown. It's part of what we did on our ice cream walk not all that long ago. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the 10 things that I wish I would have, 10 things I wish I knew before walking the Camino de Santiago or the Camino Frances. And the first being the Pyrenees. And I just had recently done a video on that. It will kick your ass if you're not prepared. And some people will debate that, and that's fine. Just what I wish I would have done more is some up and down here in my hometown prior to leaving as far as training goes. I wish I would have done a bit more of incline and decline to kind of get used to that type of terrain. It's something that I wasn't exactly prepared for. I achieved it. Took the better part of the day, but I did achieve it. And, headed to do it all over again. I might even split up that day one, as some people have commented and mentioned that they've stayed in Orison or they stayed in Borda, and then broke up day one so that they could just conquer the rest of Roncesvalles after, some food, some rest, and they've gotten acclimatized to what, walking on that kind of incline, on the Pyrenees is all about. So first and foremost, day one, that Pyrenees punch in the gut, I would certainly do some more training in terms of incline and hills, and maybe split up the day into two parts. So the second thing is your feet are everything. Blisters will make or break your Camino. So, the second that you feel a hot spot on your feet, you really should be getting off to the side and checking things out, taking your shoes off, taking a break, checking for hot spots. Because really, once you get those and they're unattended, it's really kind of it's a pain for the next few days or weeks, and if they're not treated properly. So it's not your gear, it's not your mindset, it's really your feet are the most important thing, I'd have to say, in terms of your Camino. So aside from shoe choice, it's how you care for them. And, don't push through it, because pushing through it is obviously going to be a recipe for disaster. So I have to say, be very mindful. And if it's something that I really paid attention to while I was on the Camino, was taking care of my feet. So, it's one thing that I wish I would have known, is just how important that is, and not to stray from the norm. That time that I got a different pair of socks and threw a blister for myself. But in any case, number two would be, your feet are everything. So take care of them, and they will ensure that you have a great walk for over 800 kilometers across the next 5 weeks. The number three thing that I wish I had paid attention to and thought more of before I went on my Camino would have to be pack lighter than you think. So when you got everything that you think as far as gear that you need, go over it and strip it down at least another third. And I'm being very serious. Everybody says it, pack light, nobody listens. I've shown pictures of my gear thus far. I'll get into things about gear and what you should or shouldn't have, and especially show what I took that was absolutely not needed. Every extra pound when it comes to, a couple hours left to go, getting to that town, and you just want to relax. It just feels so heavy on your back. There are things that you definitely need, but there are things that you can absolutely do without. You're not in, a rural part of the world where you can't find anything you need in terms of emergency scenario is available. So again, one thing that I wish I would have thought more of is packing ultralight and really thinking about the weight that I'm putting on my back. That is a key one. So the fourth one is pretty interesting, because it would be defeating the purpose of you watching me, and you don't have to plan everything in advance. Sometimes just being spontaneous is enough. I know a lot of people that pre-booked their accommodations, and yeah, it's probably smart to do that in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, perhaps Orison and Borda, and maybe even Roncesvalles, because things are getting busier. Now, granted, I haven't been there in 4 years, and it is debatable. I'm hearing that some places are booked up, but also there's an option of going off stage. You don't have to exactly do it by the book, so to speak. The Pilgrim's Office will give you a stage by stage walkthrough. Some of the Pilgrim's books will do the same, or the apps that you follow, and they are popular spots along the way to stay, but you can go beyond or fall short in terms of where you might want to stay, and you'd have a better option of maybe getting a bed, because those popular ones will probably be well booked. Or if they still stick to what they typically have, is they will only reserve so much and keep some beds available for those that show up. So, I mean, try your luck, fly by the seat of your pants. You know, the Camino provides, as they say, and has a way of doing so. So my advice in this respect is like, plan some things, but don't, go right down to the nitty gritty, because you might meet people that are staying somewhere else. You might have a Camino family that is going against the grain and wants to go a little further, and you want to stay with them. So don't plan it to death, and I wish I kind of paid more attention to that myself. I didn't book every night, but I didn't go off stage either. So I think the next time I will, see what the Camino has in store for me and just kind of go with the flow. So number 5 on the list is about albergues. And what I wish I knew about that is just how dormitory style they are. I had watched enough to know that it's communal kind of sleeping areas in the municipal albergues or the donativos. Sometimes that top bunk bed is all that's available, and it's a tough go, for us that need to get up in the middle of the night. And you want to be prepared for, the fact that it's going to be a lot of noise in there at night. Sleep comes in fits. Some of them are nicer than others. Some have all the kind of bedding that you could want. Some of them, are a little bit more bare bones and less of the creature comforts, which is fine. I mean, and some will even be a mattress on the floor in some of the monasteries that are on the route. And that is part of the allure. It's part of the magic of it. So what you need to be prepared for is albergues, and donativos. They're not hotels. They're not even, hostels in a lot of cases. Hostels, at least, you might have your own space or a shared space with a bathroom or without a bathroom at the end of the hall. And somewhere that you can have a bit more privacy. When you're in a municipal albergue, you are all out there. Your backpack's on the end of the bed. You've got your sleeping bag liner. You've got your paper kind of pillow wrap, if you have a pillow, if they are fortunate enough to have a pillow for you. So it is essentially bare bones. So be prepared for that. And, something that I kind of half knew, but didn't know exactly what I was expecting. I did stay in some hostels. I even stayed in the odd hotel to change it up a bit. And, if I'm going back next time, I think I'm just going to keep it to all albergues because, again, that's the magic of the experience where you get to be with all your Camino family. You get to have those Camino meals. It's part of it. And yeah, you're a bit restless, but that's what siestas are for, and in terms of getting to the town the next day and maybe having a little bit of a nap and catching up on some well-deserved rest. But again, all part of the Camino. Bring earplugs and get ready for the snoring. So number 6 on the list of what I wish I knew about the Camino Frances before I left was just how mentally taxing it can be. And sometimes the mental game is much tougher than the physical game, in that you can wake up one morning and everything is great. You're in check, you're rested, your feet are good, you got your trail legs and everything is clicking along really nice. And then you hit the Meseta or you hit some other long stretches that are repetitive terrain and you're just kind of in your head. You could be, 3.5 weeks in and you're just like, when is this going to be over? What am I doing? Or even early on, the first few days where you're just like, why am I here? That could befall you and it could be tough and mentally, as I said, taxing. So getting ahead of that sometimes can be a challenge. I wish I knew more about that before going. There was only maybe one instance where that was just like a couple of hours of straight, same view, and I just wanted to get to where I needed to be, rain coming down, that sort of thing. And you just rebound and you put one foot in front of the other and the next day is around the corner and, that night is a warm bed and, a great meal and you do it all again the next day. And that's the beauty of the Camino as well, is just, while it is physical, it is also mentally challenging. And when it's all said and done, you will be glad that you had that time alone with your thoughts. All right, so number 7 on the list is an important one for you to remember. You don't have to prove anything. And I wish I kind of thought of that more going into it. I mean, you are not proving your Camino to anybody. There is much talk about tour-agrinos, if you will, those that come and do the last 100 kilometers or so of the Camino Frances starting in Sarria, or the Portuguese starting in Tui, because that is what the requirement is to get a Compostela. And you know what? What if you only have a week vacation to do this? Then by all means, all the power to you. What if you don't think you could do the full Camino Frances? or Portuguese, and you want to, test the waters. Great. That's fantastic that you're actually doing it. The thing is, you don't have to prove to anybody this is your Camino to walk. So I want to be very clear on that. I mean, for myself, I did, pretty much everything, except with the exception of, and shout out to Camino Jim again. He was with us, and we were nearing Osobrero. We were on our way, making our way up that mountain, and it was raining, like serious rain, and just mud spilling down. And Jim, having had walked this many times, said, you know what? It's like, I'm just going to put it out there. The last 4 or 5 kilometers to where we were going to end that night, we may want to think about a cab. There's not much, it's going to be a mess. We're going to be soaking when we get there, and, who knows what it'll be dry by the next day. So let me just put that out there. And we agreed. We hopped in a cab, and we took the last 4 or 5 kilometers to our destination for that night. And we were fine for it. And we weren't, damning ourselves because we didn't walk every single step of the Camino Frances. So, I mean, for that purpose alone, don't pile on yourself for not doing the exact Camino that you're supposed to do. It is yours to do. I mean, if you take a rest day or 2 rest days or come back next year and finish it off, that is completely up to you. You're not out to prove anything to anybody. And I wish that I kind of had more of that mindset to not be like, I have to stop here. I got to walk all this. I mean, because I regretted the taxi for a little bit, but I was just like, come on. Like, what if you were in pain or needed to take a rest or needed to taxi on to the next town because you just couldn't do it? Well, all the power to you. Make the Camino your own. Make it for yourself. And you're not out there to prove anything to anyone. What number are we on? Number 8. So number 8 is what I wish I knew about the Camino, is just how social it could be. You will meet people from all walks of life, from all parts of the globe, which is fantastic. I'm still friends with a number of people that I met from Australia, from the United States, from different parts of the world. And as a matter of fact, Camino Jim, who I keep mentioning, and Sunny, they're walking right now. They met on our Camino, and they're doing the Portuguese as we speak. And you keep connections with these folks as well, if you're lucky. There are 2 people that I know specifically on my Camino that met, started dating, kept corresponding, fell in love, recently got married. So that's something that you can, hey there. That's something that is happenstance, doesn't always happen, but is certainly some Camino magic when it comes to it. So yeah, I mean, it hits a little different because the social aspect of the Camino is one that you could either really take part in, or you can, kind of stick to your own if you wanted to. That would mean maybe walking at your own pace and staying in your own private rooms and just kind of doing what you wanted to do because you want to do it yourself. And that's fine. Again, going back to my make it your own Camino, make the Camino your own, make it for yourself. But if you want the social aspect and stay in the albergues or the donativos and have the Camino meals and make food together and clean up and set out the next day, sometimes even from day 1 at Orasan, you might meet that family, that Camino family that sticks with you all the way through. And I tell you, when you get to the end and you're doing it with your people, it is such a great feeling having accomplished that. And it's just this camaraderie of having pulled together and pulled off this great feat of walking the pilgrimage, the Camino Frances, for the past 5 weeks, and you're there at Camino De Santiago at the foot of the cathedral, and just amazed, because when I think about it now, it's very emotional, and to get there with the people that you meet, and sometimes to be there without the ones that you did meet and you wish were there, is just equally as awe-inspiring. So number 8 is, as much about the people as it is about the journey. I would implore you to be social and, see what you can do as far as, making your own Camino family. And who knows, you might be joining them again in a few years' time. So number 9 on the list of what I wish I knew about the Camino Frances before doing it was, you will miss your people and your people will miss you. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if you are in a relationship, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, partner, spouse, that's a tough one, in that you're pretty much 5 weeks thereabouts, or give or take, away from them, if you're doing it solo, that is. And that is a big change, especially if you're used to that, day in, day out, and you've been with your partner for quite some time. That could be an adjustment, huge. Like when I think about, being home, especially getting home after the Camino into my nice big bed, and, obviously having my partner with me is much different than being top bunk and, a room full of 20 different bunk beds and people snoring, burping, farting, and just, it's not the scenario you would have, back at home where it's nice and comfy, cozy. But I think that's part of it, is getting out of your comfort zone and doing something like this. So, I mean, if you're the type of person that wants to do the Camino Frances and say your partner isn't, or maybe you're lucky that they want to join you, perfect. But if you are off doing this on your own, one thing to keep in mind is that, and you, of course, you're going to think that you're going to miss your partner and whatnot, but it really sets in as the weeks get on. For me, it was a little taxing towards the end, communicating with my wife and, missing her and, looking forward to being back home, not diminishing what I was doing, but just wanting to see her and be back with her. And you'll see, I'm going to throw up the video, that she was obviously missing me as well from our reunion at Toronto Pearson International Airport. So all of that said, you will miss those folks back home. And if you're not in a pairing or in a relationship, and you're single and you're young and you have your family and don't want to know about your adventures, and people that are within your close circle, of course you'll miss them and you'll miss the creature comforts of home. But you'll get back to that. And this is an opportunity to go off and have an adventure and do the Camino Frances and come back and tell them about all the exploits that you had and the people that you met, and, have them encounter that with you. And, they can be a part of that as you tell them the stories about all the wonderful things that you did and the people that you met and the sights that you saw. So that would be number 9 for me, is you'll miss folks, but you'll get back to them. So lastly, number 10 on the 10 things that I wish I knew about the Camino Frances before accomplishing it, is that it changes you. And I wasn't really fully prepared for that. I know somebody that I walked with who expected to get to Camino de Santiago and have an answer to a question that they had in their life, and were really, really surprised that when they got there that, they didn't have that kind of clarity. And I don't think the Camino changes you in some sort of grand Hollywood movie type way, as some of the stories about it would depict. I think it's over time and it creeps in, and it's perspective, and that realigns, and, certain things about your life get in tune with how simplistic it was and what it was like to be there, and the people that you met and the challenges you conquered, and everything else that went along with it, whether it was the Pyrenees or the Meseta, or, just getting together with like-minded people and having to worry about nothing except getting up, walking, washing your clothes, showering, doing it again the next day after day after day. I think that's part of what the Camino magic really is. I think you never will be fully prepared for going on such a journey, this kind of pilgrimage. Sure, it's easy to put 10 things together that I wish I knew about, but in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I didn't. In terms of being able to discover those things once I get there, and, having that kind of surprise and not being fully prepared, and having the Camino provide, as they say, which it did. And I'll talk about in some instances where it was just uncanny and kind of eerie about how things just had a way of working out, as far as getting over there and doing the Camino Frances at the age of 50, as I did 4 years ago. And I mean, obviously it sticks with me. I'm going back in a couple of months to do it again after 4 years, to do the Camino Portuguese. So to that end, I would say, yes, these are 10 great things that I wish I knew more about before I went there. But, having done it and not knowing these things, I wouldn't change a thing. So in any case, thanks for joining me here in the park today. It's another beautiful day here in Ontario. I hope that if you're planning your Camino, that you do so with great ease. And if you have any questions, if you want to cover any topics, if there's anything you'd like to discuss, hit me up, send me a message. Happy to oblige, and have a great day, and buen Camino.